Why, hello, hello, hello. Once again, it's your guy. It's the coach, Ty A. And I'm here with my favorite attorney at law, my rib unit, the most beautiful, the most intelligent attorney I know.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
We actually have been recording some other videos, but as we were sitting here thinking about what's going on and looking at some of the different things that's happening in California when it comes to districts and how they're trying to help continue education in this homeschool environment, we recognize that we hadn't spent any time to talk to some of you out there that may have children with special needs. So we wanted to put this video together first before we started talking about other things when it comes to homeschooling, because we recognize that some of you really might need this help and might need this information. So today we want to let you know too, you can do it.
You can do it.
For those of you out there with children with special needs, you can still implement and make sure your child is continuing to learn. It's not something that has to only come from the school district. A big part of that is making sure that you understand what it means for your child to be special needs. A lot of you have been attending IEPs or have been to meetings to discuss 504 plans, but maybe there are some parts of it that you don't quite understand. We're going to take a few minutes to kind of walk through the IEP and let you know how you can still be the key person in implementing your child's IEP or 504 plan to make sure that they're still able to continue on with education.
Right. And in California, most of the schools are operating. The records staff are there. Maybe sometimes the school staff might be there. So if you don't have your child's IEP, you can find out who in the district, who in the special education division is working, email them and request, the current IEP, or maybe the teacher has it, because sometimes they'll maintain it on a computer system and they can just send that to you.
So your teacher definitely should have it, whether or not they have a hard copy of it or have an electronic copy of it on the computer would be the thing that you have to address. But everyone that's been involved in your child's education should have a copy of your child's IEP. Hopefully, all of you have a copy of it at home as well. So, what does the IEP look like? Well, the IEP, the first page is going to have what on it, Nicole?
The first page will have child's birthday. It will have parent's name, child's name. It will have the eligibility, and then it will just say what the child's qualifying disabilities are.
So pretty much it's like an information page, right?
Information page, entry date. So there's not a lot of information on it, just identifications.
Now, we understand that IEPs will look different from state to state. They might even look a little different from district to district, but they typically will follow this same order. And we want to help you make sure you understand how to navigate through the pages to find the information that you need to make sure that your child can still access their education.
Right. And then this is also a good time for you as parents to see where your child is. So the IEP will have goals, it will have a service plan, and it will have a baseline. And so it says your child should be able to do these things. So you can just go to the baseline identified before each goal and see, can your child, do these tasks?
Is this accurate?
Right. And sometimes it's not clear what the baseline actually is. So, maybe you can ask the teacher, or you might have to just make one up yourself if you can't contact the teacher or the service providers.
So, as we go through, once again, continue through the IEP. So after we get through the information page, what are they going to find next in a typical IEP, Nicole?
The present levels of performance will be usually the next page. And that is telling where your child was at when that IEP document was created.
Based off of assessments, either by teachers or other professionals that may have conducted some assessments with your child.
Right. So it's actually should be based on actual data. And so it will tell you what the child's strengths are, what their preference and interests are, maybe weaknesses. And then California's IEPs will say what their test scores are, English, what the standardized test scores reported.
All right. So after we go through the information and then we go through present levels, what's the next main part of the IEP we're going to find?
The pre-academic, academic functional skills. So that's part of the present levels of performance, and it tells what the child's skills are in different areas. It should say they do this in writing, this is what they can do in reading, this is what they can do in PE, and just the different subject areas that they're in, because each teacher should be reporting, or each subject area teacher should be reporting what the child is capable of doing in the class.
So After we get through all this information, we start getting more into the meat of the IEP. We start getting into the plan part of the IEP. Now that we've given information and here's this child, here's how they're performing, here's what their strengths and weaknesses are. The next part of the IEP we're going to get into is the
annual goals and objectives. And this is the part of the IEP where, as a parent, it should be the most conversation at the IEP meetings, because the teachers, the service providers will come and say, this is the goal that we have for this child based upon what they can do, because the goal is to always move them up, move them towards progress, definitely to avoid regression. Sometimes the school will say, okay, this child can't do more than this. So at least we're trying to maintain the baseline. So areas of need, then we have the baseline, the same section, and then we'll have measurable annual goals, and then there'll be short-term objectives, and so then they'll have dates, so the child should be able to do this thing by this date. And so then I think some districts maybe 3 times a year, some maybe 4 times a year. And so at each progress period, the goal that the child should do, that they want the child to do, should be increasing.
It should be constant improvement. You don't want any stagnation, because if there's stagnation or if there's regression, then the tools or the steps that are being taken to help your child need to be adjusted. But as Nicole was saying, you want to have a plan to show that the kid is constantly improving in whatever areas and goals that have been identified by yourself and the district that the child needs in order to get them and keep them on track when it comes to their education.
Right, and I'll give a sample of an IEP that I'm looking at here, and the area of need is mathematics, and it says student struggles with solving word problems and identifying key terms for solving. Student can independently solve real-world word problems at his independent reading level with approximately 40 to 50% accuracy. Now, we may not know, because just reading that, I don't know what the child's independent reading level is. So, if you would go back to the assessments that have been done within 3 years, that might indicate what grade level that child is reading at. So you might have to refer back to assessments. You may have to refer in the IEP and see if there's data in the notes about what he's reading at, or on the present level of performance page, see if it's there. So then that was the baseline.
So now that we look at the goals and the yearly goals, what's next in the IEP?
Okay. And next in the IEP, well, I think what's next would be like the offer of faith. And that would be the offer of a free and appropriate public education. So then that's telling you what the district is offering the child to serve what the child's unique needs are.
So that's where the services are going to be.
That's where the services page.
And the services are the things that they are actually doing to help your child reach their goals. So not only is it important that you go over their goals and what you're trying to accomplish, but when you go to the services page, that will tell you the things that the district has been implementing in order to help your child reach their goals. These are the same services that often you will be able to provide your child still, even though we are not in a classroom setting. Right. It's important that you understand and believe that. If you think about a number of the accommodations that might come up in the services page, these are going to be things that are not necessarily needed in homeschool because it's naturally there. So some of the services, they might say, okay, we're going to give your child preferential seating in each class or during each period so that they can be closer to the teacher, so that they can hear it better, so that they can retain it better. Right. Maybe they're going to get instruction both written and verbally.
And that would be services, accommodations, and modifications. So then the seating would be an accommodation. The service would be like the occupational therapist might come to the classroom or talk to the teacher about how to help the child access the materials in the classroom. Speech would be a service. So you can maybe ask the speech teacher, what are they working on? The IEP, if there's a speech goal in the IEP, it should identify what the goals are and what the child is working on.
And oftentimes, and before we even go into that part of it, if your child is receiving one-on-one pull-out services that'll be mentioned in that last part of the IEP, you can still request for the district to continue to provide those even during this shutdown period, because it doesn't go against most of the quarantine laws to have a one-on-one time, especially if that person is an outside provider. If they're contracted with a private entity to come in and provide your child one-on-one services, you can still access that.
You can, however, the stimulus package is trying to waive districts from providing IEP services.
Continue to provide, but you can go, you
Right
can
now
request. You can go request it. You can go ask, and there's no reason that they can't try to provide that and accommodate that for you. If you're having issues with that, please contact us. Maybe we can help. But other than that, a lot of times when it comes to these services, occupational therapy, speech, or even some behavioral type of services where they're working with a counselor, a lot of times those services are given on what's called a consult basis, where the professional is consulting with the child's teacher so that the teacher knows how to implement these services that the child needs. You can receive those same consult services during this time. You can request from the district to have the consult services delivered to you, since you are now the primary instructor in your child's education. This is some of the things to consider. And once again, we're here to let you know that you can do this. Like we said, the teacher is only being told, okay, do this, this, and this with this child in order to help them reach the goal that we written in their IEP.
Right.
They can tell you the same thing.
Right, because a lot of times the teachers, they're not specifically trained. If your child's in the general education class, the teacher might have had a few units in teaching students with disabilities, but for the most part, they're not directly trained in how to teach a child with disabilities. So, if you can get the same instruction and guidance that they get from these professionals, then, that will assist you in, serving your own child.
And, one of the things that we often see as we attend IEPs with our clients and with different districts, one of the most valuable members of the IEP team is you, the parent.
Because you're the expert on your child.
You are the expert on your child. You know your child better than anyone else. You've known your child longer than anyone else in that IEP meeting. So now, as Nicole was saying earlier, this is a great opportunity for you to sit back and say, okay, is the IEP that we put together working? Where is my child? I've been trusting and listening to the district's reports. Now you get to see firsthand where your child is as you spend time with them.
Right.
And if you feel that there are things that aren't working, this is a time for you to try some other things. Right. Try some things that you feel might work. So when you do get back to school and when you do sit back down with the IEP team, you can sit down and either verify that the plan has been working, or you can bring in the changes that you've made that you've seen have success with your child.
Right. And if you have your child's most recent assessments, that's also guidance, because if the report is a decent report, it will tell you what the child's strengths are, and it will make recommendations for how that child should be served to access the curriculum.
And some of you may be out there and have an IEP that maybe you didn't all the way agree with. Maybe you felt like your child should have got more, or there's something else that they should have been working on. Once again, here's the time for you to be able to do those things.
Right, and then you can take your data back to the district and say, hey, this worked. So this is my child was prior to, this shutdown, and this is where my child is now after me having worked with this child for all of this time. Or, this is where you said this child was, but when I got this kid home and be able to work with him every day, this is not where the baseline was.
This was our reality. So once again, our goal is to encourage you, to let you know that you can do this, whether or not your child is somewhere on the autism spectrum, may have some behavioral needs, or maybe they have some speech difficulties. Maybe their handwriting isn't the best that it can be because they need occupational therapy to get their grip right. These are all things that you are more than capable of continuing to work with your child on, so that there is no regression during this time. Remember, homeschooling is the best schooling, in our opinion, because no one knows your child like you.
Right, and no one has a greater interest in your child's success than you as the parent.
No one at all. So, Congratulations. This is the end of your second week now?
Second week.
Second week.
Depending on what state you're in.
Depending on what state you're in, most of you are getting through your second week of homeschooling. You survived. If you're looking at this, you have survived, unless you're looking at this in the back of a police car or something. But if you're looking at this, you survived. You can do this. You can continue to do this, even if your child has special needs. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to answer your questions. We're here to give you help and to give you support as we continue as a nation, as a world, to face this pandemic. Good luck to everyone. God bless.
Take care.
Be safe.